Is there a doctor in the house?
Doctor, you have a visitor in the main lobby.
To the Doc podcast, where we dig into all the hardships and fun of being a leader and answer all of life's questions. Well, except for where's the other sock? I can never figure that out. Anyways, so usually I have a guest in the exam room, but today it's just me and something on my mind. To me, it's maybe some leaders are misdiagnosing. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is in. Hey, so I wanted to start off today with a line of thinking that on the surface sounds like good news. So in my email this week popped in, the Financial Times reported earlier this year that economists largely expect the United States to keep and maybe even extend its productivity advantage. The case they pointed to was that the U.S. experienced like a 10% rise in productivity over the period of 2019 to 2024, and that we're going to keep our lead over the rest of the world. So with AI investment and deep capital markets as part of the reason that many economists think that we stay ahead, to me that's the kind of headline that makes people in big offices and small offices alike sit up and just a little bit straighter and go, hey, check it out. We're doing it. We're innovating. We're modernizing. And, I get it. I'm always ready to chant USA. It sounds like great momentum, or maybe we just got the machine humming. There's so much talk about AI in the United States, and the removal of some of the policy restrictions make it seem like, hey, we're doing great. But of course, it also sounds sometimes like, all these subscriptions that you and I are paying for all the time are doing more than just drain our checking account and send one more logon code to my accounting person. Hey, type in this number. But to me, here's my diagnosis that the market and every vendor's ad seems to say productivity is increasing because we have more technology. And in some ways, I guess I'm one of them, since in a way I do promote the use of technology to help organizations out. But lately, the more I learn about AI, it feels like the busier I am. I've been wondering if the real diagnosis is that maybe more organizations are instrumented, more measured, more meeting heavy, but digitally exhausted than truly productive. So that's kind of what I wanted to dig into today, is take a look at myself, take a look at what I hear, take a look at what I think, and try and figure out, because there is a difference between looking advanced and being effective, AI, and truly changing the work as opposed to just making it a little bit better, reducing your labor and increasing output. And also, just generally the thing we hope in every organization, are we keeping people busy? Are we just keeping people busy versus actually helping people move the mission forward? So today's doctor visit is about what I call the productivity reset. Why more work isn't creating more growth. Got that? So I want to frame this. As you know, I'm a doctor, so I always like to get some evidence. So I'm going out gathering some evidence, and those vitals that I'm getting, I love my vitals. I'm going to give you the pulse, the heart rate, and the weight of the issue. Not because I'm trying to play a business doctor on the internet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Not only because of that, but because business leaders need a way to diagnose what is actually happening, not just repeat whatever the market is shouting this week or whatever I'm telling them or someone else is telling them. So here we go. I think the popular belief is this, and it's simple. More software, more AI, more dashboards, more optimization, more pressure, accountability, more hustle, and all of that should add up to more growth. That's the market story. That's what we're hearing. And To be fair, there's some truth in that. My next statistic here, the U.S. Chamber in 2025 said that small businesses were already using generative AI, and that's up from 40% in 2024. That's a real jump. That's suggesting that adoption isn't just theoretical anymore. And I love it. So yes, the scoreboard does show some gains, at least according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. But that's where I start to think differently about that easy interpretation. I don't think more activity is the same thing as more progress. As a longtime technologist, I don't think more technology automatically equals more output. And I definitely don't think that the answer for an already overloaded team is just to hand them another app and say, "Hey, get at it, dude. This is gonna make you awesome." That's not transformation. That's just one more app with a pep talk. So my replacement model is this. I think productivity today is less about squeezing harder and more about removing drag. Removing drag in communication, approvals, handoffs. For us, tool sprawl, ownership, heck, meeting overload, decision latency, all the rework. And, that good old-fashioned, glorious American tradition of making smart people wait on vague people. So there it is. That's the disease, friction. Second metric that I had today, I came across a Reuters study that said productivity growth remains solid overall, averaging 2.1% annually since 2019. So that's going back to the COVID days. And I think I saw another story on, Mark Cuban just recently came out, kind of threw a little bit more fuel on the story. And he said that companies that use AI agents could cut about an hour from the workday. I think I saw something else on social media saying that the 40-hour work week is gone. So, everything, he's got to go out there and say some stuff, otherwise he won't get quoted. So to me, what most people say it means is, see, the future's here. More AI equals more productivity. If you're not deploying this stuff everywhere, you're falling behind. Microsoft promotes the frontier firm, the organization that deploys AI at all levels, which I've been promoting internally since we're a good Doobie Microsoft shop. That's our standard reading. And the reading isn't crazy. We've definitely seen some very real improvements and some very real changes to our workflow. But I think it's a little bit incomplete. And I think that my experience after 2 years of dealing with AI, what it actually reveals is that, as leaders, we're all hungry for leverage. But when I interact with others, I find that many are still kind of confusing tool adoption with actually improving their operating model. So I brought on a fantasy guest. Being a fake doctor, I'm well qualified to bring on a fake guest. So my fake guest is Mr. Overwhelmed Owner. You know who you are. You're the owner. You've got payroll, customers, margin pressure. You've got people problems. Hard to believe. Yes, I know. Maybe your business is affected by the tariffs, so you've got some uncertainty around you. And you're hearing that AI can make your team more productive. So you do what any rational person does. You go out and buy a few tools. You test ChatGPT. Someone else rolls out Copilot for a few users. You got a few people on Claude. You hear somebody blurt out the phrase agentic workflow, and immediately you start wondering, is that a new tool? Is that a software category? Or heck, in my case, is that a new medical diagnosis? That's what happens when you're a doctor. And here's what I think happens. At first, the team gets excited. A few things get faster. Someone writes a draft or faster or gets through their email a lot quicker. And someone gives out that awesome spreadsheet formula without waiting on Bob the accountant because Bob's so awesome. Great. But after that novelty wears off, one of two things happens. Either the organization redesigns work around those capabilities, or the organization just piles more expectations on the same people. And I think the second one is what I'm feeling or seeing, or maybe I'm experiencing periodically. Oh, good. AI helps me finish in 6 hours. Let me send you this other thing. Terrific. Here's 10 hours of work you have to get through since you're more efficient now. And I don't think that's not productivity. That's how you turn efficiency into exhaustion, burnout. So for the organizational leaders, the owner that's listening, here's the takeaway for you. AI adoption is a signal of interest, but it's not a proof of organizational effectiveness. Definitely a tool can remove minutes. A good operating model removes recurring waste, but those aren't the same thing. And this especially matters for us in small businesses, smaller organizations, local government, nonprofits, because smaller organizations don't have the luxury of taking in a bad process with sheer headcount. Our brethren, the Fortune 500 organization, they can lose a week to committee, bureaucracy, and nonsense and still ship something. A 35-person company loses a week, and suddenly the owner's back in the weeds. Your ops manager is frazzled. Your sales lead or sales manager is asking why nothing got approved. So when I see that 58% number, I don't just hear small businesses are modernizing. I also hear small businesses are searching for relief. We're all looking for leverage. We're trying to get more output without hiring a second layer of management, as we scale or as we take on more work. And I think that's the right instinct. My point is, the wrong move is to think that software is the only strategy, because it isn't. There you go. My third metric here is heart rate. Heart rate is kind of your performance rate, your anxiety. Let's go ahead and move to the heart rate. And I think this is where the rhythm gets a little bit weird. Again, I read in Reuters March 19th that linked layoffs accounted for about 7% of the planned U.S. layoffs announced back in January. 7%. So those improvements we're supposed to get, we're letting people go, and that work just doesn't go away, so that's getting put back on those people who are more efficient. Reuters also reported on March 16th that companies keep cutting jobs in the name of efficiency as they keep increasing the adoption of AI tools. So I think that what most people think that means or say it means is that, hey, productivity is improving, companies are streamlining, AI is helping them become leaner. Maybe, sometimes. But I think here's what I think it actually reveals. A lot of leaders are using the language of productivity when what they really mean is cost pressure. And those things are cousins. They're not twins. Real productivity that's when, I guess, output rises because work gets better designed. Fake productivity is when that chaos gets spread across fewer people and everybody claps because the spreadsheet looks thinner. You can look back at the U.S. history and see times in our past when things like that have happened. And that's a healthier company. That's a company that's on a crash diet bragging about the first week. Keto, anyone? Is anyone? Yeah, okay, got it. All right. And anybody who's ever tried one of those knows what happens next. As soon as I started keto, I got a little bit cranky. I lost muscle mass. I started making bad decisions around 4 p.m. And around midnight, I eventually eat a whole pizza. But hey, it was diet, and that was a strategy. And I think businesses have their own version of that. And that may or not be my own personal testimony, but maybe I saw a person do that. That's what it was. I had a friend who went through that. It wasn't me. So now it's time to bring on another phantom guest. And coming from an ops background, I brought on my good friend, the ops manager. So let me talk to him a little bit. Now, you're the one who actually feels the heartbeat of this thing. The owner says, we need you to be more productive. Finance is saying, hey, we got to keep costs tight. We got to stay lean. The IT team, hey, we got tools. It's like milk. We got tools. And then HR is going around saying, hey, everybody's nervous. People are nervous. What's going on? Nobody knows what's happening. And of course, the entire team, the rest of the organization, all us doobies, we're moving as fast as we can. So how much more productivity can we give you? You know what the real issue is? It's not effort, it's friction. Again, it's the approval chain that takes 5 days. It's the meeting after meeting after meeting with remote work. Some days feel like such a beatdown because you can't just have a casual conversation. You got to get on a camera. Some organizations force you to turn the camera on, and you're sitting there staring eye to eye with people the entire day. before we went to remote work, how many hours did we end up standing eye to eye with somebody? Yeah, we're collaborating, working together, but we maybe weren't staring each other in the eye face to face across the table. And even if you were doing that some of the time, when a third person spoke, the pressure was off of you, and just doing it day after day, end after end, meeting after meeting. And I think I've got people looking across different systems for I've got email, I've got Teams chat, I've got channels, I've got people texting me, I've got all kinds of, all the other mediums out there, Discord. I think it creates all these half-finished priorities. I find myself changing gears a lot, and even in AI. Sometimes I'm opening up different windows because I've got different conversations going on at the same time. Sometimes I start researching something or working on it, only get it interrupted, work on something completely different, get interrupted again, work on something completely different, have a meeting, have to work on something completely different. So then I spend the rest of the day trying to trace back through my conversations, my chats, my, all my searches, all my generative stuff to find out where's that one that I was dealing with related to this. Well, how about this one that was related to contracts? How about this one that was related to a specific client situation? I think it's 100 little interruptions that make everyone look busy and just kind of feel behind. So in my head, when I hear Reuters tell us that layoffs are linked to AI and efficiency, what I don't hear is, hey, the machine is now better. The company is well structured. The company is well organized. We've the tools that were the reason we can let go of those people. I hear a lot of companies are trying to make the org chart fit the technology story before the operating model is actually ready. And that's a little dangerous for our clients, because when people become anxious, they start to protect themselves. And I don't know that protected people innovate well. They don't take smart risks. We want people to take risks. AI is a little bit of a risk. It isn't an automatic guaranteed benefit or help. It requires you to fire bullets before cannonballs. You got to go out there and try things out, test it. And when people are in that situation, they collaborate cleanly. They kind of hedge or hold back. Check with 5 people before they test a tool or send on an email. They might create one more meeting just to make sure that everybody's on the same page and just trying to be safe. So suddenly the key that thought was becoming more productive might actually become slower. Not because the people are lazy, because that's getting tighter. So Steve's doctor's diagnosis on that. If your productivity plan increases faster than it increases clarity, you may get compliance, but you don't always get performance. That's a huge difference. That's clients' I did what you asked versus performance, where it's I'm the business forward. The first one is more survival oriented. The second one is more growth oriented. Does that make sense? Is that tracking with some of you guys out there? Anyways, my metric here, my weight, I think of weight as strategy and what productivity even means now. So let's talk about weight. And of course, not body weight, strategic weight. What this issue is really carrying. And my next headline, again from Reuters, it was a Reuters day, but on the March 19th report, it also talked about a term that I hadn't heard before. It used this term micro-shifting. And micro-shifting is where workers split work into like these focus throughout the day, across the day, not a specific time, but at different times. And performance is judged more by output than hours behind the screen. But the broader return to office debate keeps bringing up, raising the same question underneath everything else. Does productivity come from presence or from clarity and process? Is it, old timers like me, I'd rather have everybody here in the office with me? Are they more productive from home? Are they more collaborative? Are they working on the things that we want? Are they working on the things that we don't know that we need to yet because they overheard something? Work is changing. That's what people are saying. Work is changing. People want flexibility. We decide where work happens. Maybe. But I think the deeper meaning is this. Productivity is being redefined from visible activity to valuable output. And, like I mentioned, legacy leaders, that's a bit uncomfortable for some of us because visible activity is easier to manage. You can count how many times somebody badged into the building. You can see calendars, and you can watch who's in the office and who seems to be sitting at their desk working and who's chit-chatting it up again. Heck, you could the great theater of people walking briskly with laptops as if urgency itself were a deliverable. That's what I do. I'm really good at that. That's like a superpower for me. But output, that's harder. That thinking, that requires sharper thinking. That forces, what does output look like? What's slowing output down? What decisions are bottlenecked? What work matters most? Which tasks should disappear and not just speed up? That's harder. So, a technologist, I thought I'd divide it up a little bit today. So my phantom guest today is the IT guy adding another tool. And I know this. I still like to get involved in cutting edge technologies. I attend a lot of cybersecurity events where we get to see new technologies, new tools, new capabilities. I don't want to say I'm a sucker for a new tool, but I really appreciate a technology that fills the gap between things, something that really adds value and automates things. Within Fulcrum, we have probably 30-ish different technologies and tools in our stack that kind of help support our network support, fractional CIO, cybersecurity, virtual CISO, AI practices. So let me talk to the IT guy or gal or whoever just got asked to find an AI solution by Friday. Sometimes it's just a department lead or somebody else. I get your pain. I know your pain. You're getting that pressure from above to modernize. Kudos to a leader, having expectations and picking up the challenge and championing AI or championing whatever technology. Pressure from below to simplify. You're getting pressure from above. You got to get more modern. You're getting pressure from below. It's got to be easy. You get pressure from all your vendors to come check out our tool, come demo the future. How many times a day do you hear the word AI or see it in an email? If you get the chance, go check out the video on the Microsoft Ignite event where they highlight every single time somebody says AI or Copilot at the event. It's actually quite hilarious. Anyways, pressure from vendors to demo the future, pressure from security to not break anything or create new issues, or pressure from your IT person to not do something AI because they're afraid it will break something. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you're trying to keep the place patched, protected, documented, all end user support tickets handled, things not on fire, incident response to any little, hey, I clicked a link kind of thing that comes up. And somebody says, can't we just add one more tool? And maybe you can. But I think here's the problem. Every new tool is not just a capability. It also adds some form of complexity. You've got another login, maybe another interface. Maybe you can't plug it into Teams. Maybe it's got another data source. Maybe another workflow. Maybe you're trying to interconnect it. So you've got single sign-on or other things that you're trying to configure, an API. You've got another place where there's a organizational truth that might live. Another integration that may or may not behave or may not be as secure or may need additional security testing. You've got another training need. You've got to do another security review. You're only as secure as your least secure connection. So, every time you add a site, every time you got a home worker, every time you add a new tool, there's another possible vector for something happening. And it's another thing that the team has to remember. I don't know about your organizations, but how many tools does your organization have that not everybody uses? You've got them, you're paying for them, you've got a license, but where do they find the time to learn it? How do they figure out the value? So I don't think the question is, can this tool do something impressive? I think the question is, going back to friction, will this tool reduce friction across the business or just create, one more island of partial usefulness? That's a test. That's a real test. Because I have seen organizations with great tooling, brilliant tooling, but terrible momentum. It kind of seemed like those organizations just struggle with it. Of course, on the flip side, I have seen organizations with less flash, but much better throughput. Why do I think that is? And I think that's because the second group, George Carlin's Dusty and Buddy, Dusty's bad. But anyways, I think the reason is because that second group has the cleaner priorities, fewer handoffs, better standards, maybe faster decision making, and a predisposition, that stronger bias towards actually finishing work instead of admiring it. In our own environment, I talk a lot about our ticketing system and how we're handling stuff and the fewest touches on taking care of people's issues, because I don't want my team to be ticket fondlers. I don't want to get passed from person to person to person. If we don't know why it's getting fixed, let's find out why it didn't get fixed and required 2 people to touch it or 3 people to touch it. That's important. That's an important thing. And I think that's the weight of where this issue lands, because productivity isn't, it's not a time management problem. It's a design problem. So with that, let me kind of name what I think this flawed model is plainly. Anyways, that flawed model says, add more technology, push for more output, cut some costs, and assume growth will follow. You know what? It all sounds structured, disciplined, it sounds smart, it even sounds executive. But I think it breaks down because it ignores the order of operations. You don't get durable productivity from technology first. You get it from preparation, from planning, from clarity, from structure. Then you've got the process, you've got ownership, you've got tooling. Otherwise, you automate confusion. And within ITIL, they use the optimize and operate function, or optimize and automate function. And one of the key things out of that is before you get started, write it down, make sure the process is right, then try to automate it. And folks, I think that's one of the most expensive hobbies in business. You'd be amazed how many companies take a broken process, add software to it, and then act surprised when now they have a faster broken process. You know, of course, it's got prettier charts, or better interface, but that's another story. You know, it's like putting racing stripes on a shopping cart with one bad wheel. Technically, yes, it still moves. It looks faster, but, you know, we kind of know where this is heading. We all know where this is headed. Right into a aisle of Doritos. Or is it Funyuns? Anyway, so it's always somewhere in the chip aisle that it seems to kind of lose its course. Or maybe it's a soft drink aisle. So here's my contrarian belief in one sentence. The real productivity reset is not getting people to do more work. It's getting the entire organization to waste less effort. That's the whole ball game. So to me, I think there's a better model. And here it is. Here's my the things I ask. One of the things I ask my people is, what's the one big takeaway you want me to get from it? And so here it is. Turn on your recorders, turn on your dictation software, make sure you get this. This is my first solo podcast, so you know this is going to be like an atom bomb of useful information. Here's your one big takeaway. The market says productivity comes from more tools and more work. I go back to my diagnosis along the ways. The real diagnosis is friction. And the winners, the big winners, will be the organizations that reduce that drag faster than their competitors, add complexity to their process. So AI great, tools great, but by themselves, they're not the answer. The answer is reducing friction along the way. That's it. Not who buys the most software, not who talks the most about software, or the person who posts the best thought leadership thread with all the right rocket ship emojis and throws words like agentic workflow revolution in there. It's not that. It's not that at all. The winners will be the leaders who build organizations where good work moves cleanly. That's the future. Or that's the future that I see. That's that productivity reset model. If I broke that up into some different clusters, here's how some of those would go. So first, I would list clarity. I think I mentioned clarity multiple times. That's what matters now. You know, what outcome are we pursuing? What should stop? What should we start? What should wait? What should get resourced? What should get outsourced? If everybody, there's an old saying, if everybody has 10 priorities, nobody has one. Or If everybody's supposed to kick in on one priority, then nobody owns that priority. You've got to have that clarity. The second cluster, process. I'm a big process guy. I grew up in the era of Edward Demings and Six Sigma and all of those kinds of things. So I love process. But the process side of things is, how does work actually move? Where am I handing it off to the next person? Where does work stall? Where's rework happening? What kind of things are still tribal knowledge? Process means certainty. So if the process depends on a person, if it depends on heroics, if it depends on that limiting individual, a la the Phoenix Project, then it's not a process. It's just a person who's put all the weight on their back or is holding the organization hostage by pretending like it's something that can't be turned into a process. The third thing that I think I mentioned was decision speed. How long does it take to get an answer? Who owns the call? What decisions can be made lower in the organization versus bubbling up to the top? What actually does require leadership and what doesn't? To me, having worked in larger organizations and smaller organizations, slow decisions are like these hidden productivity killers. They're those gremlins, those things that hold things up, that needlessly cause issues. I try to, we're big proponents of AMP, authority, mastery, and purpose. So we're trying to take that away from our frontline people and empower them to be able to make those decisions on their own. We use our core values to say, hey, these are your get out of jail free cards. As long as you're following these core values and trying to do good things in our clients' best interests, I'm a firm believer that we shouldn't let policy get in the way of us doing the right thing. But slow decisions those are the worst things in the world, because it stalls things. It frustrates people. It makes people feel useless because maybe they're the subject matter expert and ready to go, but it takes 2 or 3 weeks just waiting for an official okie dokie from somebody. That's frustrating. I've been there. That was frustrating for me. So now let's talk selective automation. Now, I'm a big proponent, up and down, top and bottom, east and west, near and far. I want automation everywhere it makes sense. So now if we're going to bring in AI, now we got to bring in workflow tools. Now summarize, draft, classify, route things, make search better, accelerate the right tasks, but do it against a cleaner operating model, one that makes sense for your organization, your culture, your people, how you guys operate. The fifth cluster that I have for you is, we talk about AI a lot, artificial intelligence. In one of my recent podcasts, we talked about artificial wisdom, which I loved. I love that phrase. You can't replace artificial wisdom. And so that's why my fifth cluster is human capacity. What can we remove? What tedious things can we remove so people can think? Where is that burnout forming? Those low-hanging fruit. What interruptions can be reduced? What meetings do we need to get rid of or need to die with dignity? If you never give people breathing room, you can't expect better judgment. That is a better model. Not magical, trendy, just true. If you free the mind up to be able to really hyper-focus on things, do deep work that you can touch tangibly, get your arms around, and actually impact, that's what we're after. If we're going to get rid of stuff, get rid of that rote stuff that we shouldn't have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, because there's a better way. There's very simple automations, a lot of great personal productivity stories out of AI, Microsoft Office 365, if that's your standard suite. There's definitely a lot of great things in there, but you've got to be focused on that. Let's get rid of that simple stuff. Let's get rid of the easy things that we shouldn't have to deal with, so that we can actually focus on the things that are more important. And of course, if that's my one big takeaway, let me think of some prescriptions to go along with that. As a quality physician, I'm not there just to admire a diagnosis. I'm there for a complete treatment plan. I want to take care of everything for you to make sure that you don't have to come back, that you're feeling good and life's right. So my first prescription, I'm using this word friction a lot. Run a friction audit. Not just your typical technology audit. Most organizations can tell you what tools they own. Some can't. Obviously, we have tools to see what SaaS apps you have, what Windows Workstation apps you have, what things are in your network. But I think very few can tell you where work gets stuck. So pull your team together, pull your leaders together, pull your knowledge workers together, and ask them these questions. Where are we waiting? Where are we redoing work? Where are people unclear? Where do you get frustrated? Where are approvals too slow? Or where do you have to worry about duplicate systems? What process annoys our best people the most? I think that's one of my best questions there is find your best people and ask them what annoys them. We're a scaling up partner, and we used to do this exercise called Start, Stop, Keep. And to me, this stop part of that is, what process annoys our best people the most. We're trying to de-hassle their lives and make it good, make it better, make it easier. Because if you really have good people, your best people know exactly where organizational stupidity lives. You may not enjoy hearing it, but of course that's a separate medical issue. My second prescription here is pick 3 workflows, not 30 ideas, not 30 dreams. I mentioned scaling up. Within scaling up, one of their tools is called PACE. Within PACE, you try to identify the top 4 to 7 processes in your organization to focus on. And I think that's one of those dream scenarios for AI is that we talk about rolling out across the organization, but not all at once. Focus on those top 3 workflows. You can't roll out AI across the company like butter on Texas toast. You got to pick 3 workflows. Maybe it's proposal creation because that drives sales. Maybe it's meeting follow-up because you struggle with recaps or you struggle with the timeliness of client feedback via recaps. Maybe it's taking advantage of all your intellectual property, your internal knowledge search, your knowledge bases for the organization. If you're trying to scale, it could be something like client onboarding. If you got a lot of complexity in your company, it might be your help desk triage or invoice coding or service request routing. Who knows? It could be shipping, warehousing. Just pick the ones with volume and I think with pain. Improve those first. Measure your time saved, what kind of errors are reduced, what kind of handoffs you can get rid of and eliminate. Understand what kind of turnaround you can improve. Again, think about that employee frustration you're lowering. Measure how many people spoke up before and said this was really frustrating and how many people now say, hey, this is a lot better. We should have had this a long time ago. That's where I think leaders get it wrong. They want that enterprise transformation, that high level pie in the sky. This is incredible. This is awesome. You kind of need those first few visible wins to build that trusting everybody. Heck, I'm around technologists all the time and I still run into technologists that hate AI or afraid of it or don't like it or don't want it because they don't have that trust yet. We've been promised a lot of things in the past in the world of business. And you've got to build that trust. You've got to show wins. You got to show real success. You got to have Joey in accounting praise what's going on because that's going to make Bill over in invoicing way happier. He's like, hey, we need that. We need that kind of automation in our area. Let me think of one more prescription for you. How about this? Let's take a simple one. We all meet about something. How about we try to redesign meetings before we buy more software? I promise, there's probably a shocking amount of productivity problems that are actually meeting problems. Some organizations have gone through meeting cleanup rhythms, asking themselves, do we really need this meeting once a week? Are we better off having it an hour and a half where we can get deeper every 2 weeks? Or are we happier doing a daily huddle of 10 minutes versus having 8 one-hour meetings throughout the week or 2 week period? It's tough. We've got too many. The agendas are too vague. Sometimes they run too long. They involve too many people. They're too recurring, like I just mentioned. I think my frustration sometimes is when we get too many people in a meeting. Then you've got too many spectators. We're wasting money with valuable people. You hear organizations talk about how they're implementing these rules where if you don't feel like you should be in that meeting, you can just drop out of the meeting based on how things are going. I like to force every meeting to have an agenda so you know what we're going to talk about and find out, does this apply to me or not? I think there's, part of that is there's too little ownership. There's a cost in everybody being able to call a meeting, especially when there's not ownership of that cost. So try this. Make sure that all your meetings should have a decision, a deliverable, or some sort of coordinated need. I don't think meetings exist just to prove involvement. The reality is no meeting exists just to prove involvement. Unless it's that work from home, you got to make sure that people are still out there working and you want to see them on camera or whatever. You got to end with, kind of that owner, action, deadline. If AI can summarize it, that's great. Humans shouldn't have to rehash it for 30 minutes next time. They just look at that summary. See, check it out right there. I just saved your business. I saved America. Or at least maybe I just saved a Tuesday afternoon, which that's good enough for me. But I think that, as I think of all these things and try to put it all together, that's what real productivity is. Putting it all together where it makes sense. So let me bring on my last phantom guest. And again, it's for me, it's for you, it's for every overwhelmed owner. Your move isn't to ask, how do I get people to work harder? How do I do AI? The move is to ask, what is making it hard for my best people to move the business forward, to make things better? I think that shift alone changes the conversation from blaming your people, blaming your team, blaming people for not doing AI as well as you'd like, to maybe blaming the design. I know you're still hanging around waiting to hear what I got to say. My ops manager, for you, your job is to kind of surface those friction situations honestly and kill it systematically. We're process guys. We find a problem, we fix it. We're not trying to make people look busy. We're just trying to make the system more breathable, where everything works. And I think that's a noble cause. In my head, half the business leadership would improve if folks just understood that. And of course, for my brethren, the IT leader, adding another tool, don't overdo it. Don't justify your job by becoming the curator of digital clutter. Don't become the curator of all the digital clutter. Be the person who helps the owner, the executive, be that translator between business outcomes and technology choices. That's the whole part of our Star Power functionality, but we try to make sure that we're using technology to remove drag, not dress it up in a pretty interface or dashboard or something else. That's IT leadership. And so this is kind of where I tell you why this topic matters so much to me and what we do here at Fulcrum. Technology by itself isn't the answer. Anybody can stack tools, sell licenses. I'll sell you a server. You want a blue, green, red server? I don't care. I got all kinds of servers. I got virtual servers that are different colors. Heck, anyone could throw dashboards at a leadership team and call it transformation. What really matters is whether the business is actually working better. That's where strategic IT, operational clarity, and that cybersecurity and AI maturity have come together. That's why we talk so much about business alignment. That's why we care about process. That's why we push hard on documentation, the quarterly meetings, planning, a technology roadmap, not just, hey, did you close a ticket? So anyways, I'm coming to the end of my time here. That's the end of my first doctor's appointment with not just a solo doctor, but virtual guests. Did you like it? Was that good? So let me close up here. If your business feels busy but not ahead, don't just assume your people are the problem. And don't assume another application or AI itself is the cure-all. Take a step back, start with a diagnosis. Where is work slowing down? Where is clarity missing? Where is that friction that Steve is talking about? Where is it quietly taxing our ability to grow? Fix that. Then let AI and better tools amplify your organization into a stronger operating model instead of a messy one going faster. And if you want help thinking through that from the standpoint of leadership, operations, managed IT, cybersecurity, AI, whatever that looks like, that's exactly the kind of conversation we enjoy with our clients, having that opportunity to help shape, grow, evolve, and make them a better mousetrap. Hey, if you like the podcast today, let me know. I'm thinking about trying some more solo podcasts, so if you like that, talk about it. But either way, subscribe to Talk to the Doc podcast. Share this with another leader, comment, whatever. Pass it along. Share it with one of your friends. That's how we keep building smarter and not just getting busier. That's it. I'm done for the day. I'm your host, Steve the Dr. Meek, and the doctor is out. Thanks so much. See you next time.